In the grand hall, all eyes are fixed upon a young lady named Scarlet. With composed restraint, she requests that Prince Kyle repeat his statement. The prince, maintaining an air of confidence, replies that he is prepared to do so as many times as she requires. He then declares before the entire assembly that he is terminating their engagement effective immediately, and that in her place his future wife shall be Terneza. At once the gathered nobles erupt into applause. They praise the new couple, describing them as beautiful and wishing them a bright future. Terneza curtsies gracefully and announces that she is now the prince's fiancé, pledging to dedicate her life to his happiness. Prince Kyle responds by commending her gentleness, contrasting her virtues with what he describes as the hard-hearted nature of a commoner. He remarks that he cannot believe he has wasted 17 years bound to what he calls a mad woman who has only brought disgrace upon his life. Scarlet, remaining composed, reminds him that their engagement had been arranged by the royal family and the House of Van Diemen long before their births. She asks whether he truly believes he has the authority to dissolve it at his own discretion. Kyle replies that he does, claiming that Terneza has confided in him regarding Scarlet's jealousy and her alleged mistreatment of Terneza at the academy. Scarlet calmly states that she recalls none of the events described and asserts that she has never met Terneza before that very day. Her words only provoke Kyle's indignation, and he questions how she can dare to claim ignorance. He accuses her of shamelessness and proceeds to enumerate her alleged offenses, tearing Terneza's notebook in class, locking her in a bathroom, spreading harmful rumors, and even pushing her down a staircase. After hearing these accusations, Scarlet acknowledges the situation and accepts his decision to end the engagement. Kyle replies that she may attempt to appear composed, but he believes she is broken inside and that her disposition suits the role of villainess. Scarlet reflects that if she is to be regarded as such, then she has no reason to restrain herself any longer. She requests permission to make one final request before leaving, but Kyle refuses, questioning how she dares to ask anything further. Terneza interjects that, since the matter is being concluded, it would not be wrong to grant a final wish. Amused, Kyle mocks her kindness and offers Scarlet anything she desires: money, jewels, or other possessions. Scarlet answers that her final wish is simply to strike the one she calls a witch before departing. With that, she throws a punch. As her fist connects, Scarlet wonders why she loses control so suddenly and why anger overtakes her so completely. She admits to herself that she is furious over the falsehoods spread in order to please the prince, yet she realizes the deeper reason for her rage when she recalls her past. In her memory, her brother Leo scolded her for getting into fights. He reminded her that it had been less than a week since she had attacked a boy from House Alexia, and now she had struck another. Although he understood that she had acted in defense of a commoner, he gently reminded her to control her temper, as her debut ball was approaching. Scarlet insisted that she had acted with reason, but Leo pointed out that when he arrived, her clothes had been stained with blood and she had appeared almost pleased, as if she had enjoyed the act. His observation unsettled her, and she wondered whether she had truly found satisfaction in violence. During the ball that followed, Scarlet sat alone until a young man approached and asked whether she was Scarlet. She replied that she was Scarlet of the Van Diemen ducal house. The young man, Prince Kyle, second prince of the realm, chided her for such formality, saying that from that day forward, she would be working for him. That moment marked their first meeting. From then on, Scarlet's life became one of continual hardship, for Prince Kyle devised petty and cruel ways to humiliate her. When she appealed to her father, he apologized, explaining that the engagement had been arranged by the royal family and could not be undone. Left without recourse, Scarlet endured in silence. By the time she reached 15, she had entered the Royal Academy. There she earned admiration for her beauty and her academic excellence, often ranking first in aptitude tests. Yet Kyle appeared once again, mocking her achievements and declaring that her father had sent her to the academy merely to serve him. From that point onward, Scarlet resolved to strengthen herself in both mind and will, preparing a backbone of steel to withstand his harassment. In one incident, while her friends invited her to lunch, Kyle arrived and grabbed her by the shirt, demanding to know why she was not attending to him. Scarlet initially tried to explain, but realizing it was futile, announced that she was leaving. Kyle criticized her tone, accusing her of disrespect. When she apologized repeatedly, he mocked her sincerity and declared that she required punishment. He dragged her to a secluded area while his companions blocked the others from interfering. There, Kyle taunted her, suggesting that she viewed herself as the school's queen due to her academic standing. Producing a pair of dragon-shaped scissors, he threatened to cut her silver hair as punishment. Scarlet warned him against it, stating that her father would learn of his behavior and that such an act could jeopardize the engagement. Kyle only sneered, saying that her father was powerless and obedient to the crown, and that the engagement would remain only as long as he allowed it. Scarlet prepared to retaliate, unwilling to tolerate further humiliation. At that moment, a voice interrupted them from a nearby tree, advising them to take their quarrel elsewhere. The speaker descended. It was Prince Julius, the first prince. He remarked that Kyle's antics explained his placement in the common curriculum, which provoked Kyle's anger. Julius apologized to Scarlet for his brother's behavior, calling it far from normal and warning Kyle that he would intervene if such actions continued. Kyle denied wrongdoing, but when he ordered his attendant to remove Julius, the man refused, recognizing Julius's rank. Kyle departed in fury, leaving Scarlet to process the encounter. She thanked Julius, who remarked that he was unsure whether he had saved her or Kyle. She suspected that he had realized she had intended to strike Kyle, and she asked why he had been reading in the tree. Julius explained that he preferred solitude away from the distractions of court life. Scarlet recalled that the kingdom of Palicin had two princes, Julius, the first and current heir, admired yet resented by certain nobles who felt restricted by his influence, and Kyle, the second prince, supported by a rival faction seeking greater power. The Academy reflected this division, and conflicts between the factions occurred frequently, though Scarlet herself avoided involvement. Julius later remarked that his time in class had grown more interesting since meeting her, suggesting that she had become more engaging than any book. She found his words irritating, regarding him as another troublemaker. When the results of the next examination were posted, Julius ranked first, displacing Scarlet. The students whispered that Scarlet had always been at the top. She noticed that Julius had received perfect scores in both magic and swordsmanship, and she wondered why the instructors had withheld such marks from her. When she congratulated him, he responded with confidence, implying that first place had been easily achieved. Annoyed, Scarlet took it as a challenge and increased her efforts. At the next examination, she reclaimed her top position. Julius congratulated her with apparent sincerity, placing a hand on her head and remarking that he had enjoyed watching her train. Her friends teased her about his behavior, and one suggested that Julius might have let her win deliberately to see her reaction. Scarlet resolved not to be swayed by him again. Afterward, Julius continued greeting her frequently. She questioned why their encounters seemed constant, but he called it coincidence. He told her that he enjoyed observing her expressions, as her thoughts were clearly reflected on her face. Scarlet reprimanded him for his impolite manner. Julius then remarked that her silver hair suited her and that it would be a waste for anyone to damage it. He described her as rare among the people he had met and produced a book in which her likeness was drawn beside a description, saying she was one of the most interesting figures his brother had ever provided. He even offered to replace Kyle as her fiancé, promising to treat her better. Scarlet declined courteously, concealing her growing frustration toward both princes. In the present, Scarlet is standing once again in the grand hall, thanks Terneza for giving her the final reason she needed. She then strikes her with full force. Terneza falls, blood spilling from her mouth, while Kyle rushes forward in alarm, demanding to know what Scarlet has done. Scarlet replies that she simply lost control and struck her because she was angry, asking whether that is a problem. The nobles watch in horror as Scarlet steps forward. She tells herself that she has endured years of humiliation as a royal fiancé, subjected to Kyle's cruelty and the nobles' slander. But now, at last, she is free to act. A noble calls her insane and orders the guards to seize her. Yet Scarlet casts a sleeping spell, causing the guards to collapse instantly. Panic spreads among the nobles. One offers his daughter's hand to anyone who will subdue Scarlet, but she knocks him down without hesitation. Another begs for mercy, promising rewards, yet she strikes him as well. She observes that these nobles have lived corrupt lives, exploiting others and debasing themselves. The sight fills her with grim satisfaction. She enhances her speed through magic and declares that they should dance. What follows is a storm of violence as she methodically overpowers each noble who stands before her. Some recall old tales of a mad dog noblewoman, and in that moment, Scarlet realizes that such stories might well have been about her. Still, she does not stop. When the hall is finally silent, filled with the fallen, she remarks that it is a fine evening. Turning to Prince Kyle, she proposes that they have one final dance and asks whether he will lead. Kyle is frozen with fear. Scarlet raises her fist again, but before she can strike, her brother Leo bursts in, shouting for her to stop. When he attempts to restrain her, she instinctively strikes his arm, sending him crashing into a wall. The hall falls into stunned silence. The nobles, once filled with mockery and applause, now witness the ruin of their own arrogance. The engagement is broken, and Scarlet, once known as the gentle fiancé, stands amidst the destruction, unbound, furious, and free. Scarlet stands in the ruined hall, surrounded by the wreckage she caused. For the first time in years, she feels light, as if a lifelong weight has lifted. The long years of humiliation and restraint fade into nothing. Leo rushes in, panic in his eyes as he takes in the overturned furniture and fallen nobles. Scarlet feels a spark of irritation. She had hoped he would trust her judgment, not look at her with fear. Prince Julius composed amid the devastation. He surveys the scene with quiet authority, his tone almost amused as he remarks on the fleeing attendants he passed and asks what could have caused such ruthless destruction. Leo, uneasy but trusting, asks Scarlet to explain. She meets their gaze and says the nobles committed acts too vile to speak of. When confronted, they only mocked her, so she acted. Her voice is steady, laced with anger. Silence follows. Leo stares, stunned. Julius chuckles softly, saying he's long wondered when she'd stop holding back. Her fury, he adds, must have been quite the sight. Scarlet meets his words coolly, insisting she had no choice. Leo frets over their family's reputation. But before either can say more, Scarlet's strength gives out. Julius assures Leo she'll face no charges, yet his words barely reach her. Exhaustion overwhelms her and she collapses as darkness closes in. Several days later, Scarlet wakes to the distant tolling of the bells of the Church of Cronies, the god of time. She instantly realizes she has overused her divine blessing. As her eyes open, she spots a maid nearby holding a knife, ready to strike. Instinct takes over. Scarlet reacts swiftly, hitting the maid and sending her stumbling backward. The maid mutters something about the danger of pointing weapons at others as the sound of impact echoes through the room. Moments later, Leo bursts in alarmed. He looks from Scarlet to the maid on the floor and asks if she's hurt. Scarlet regains her composure and greets him simply with a calm, "Good morning." Leo runs a hand through his hair in disbelief, muttering that after 3 days of unconsciousness, this is how she wakes. He recalls how the doctors couldn't explain her collapse and how he feared she might never open her eyes again. Relief and exasperation mix in his voice as he calls her reckless. Scarlet bows her head slightly and apologizes sincerely. Leo softens and forgives her, but insists she swear never to hit anyone again. Scarlet shakes her head, refusing. Leo groans and asks her to at least pretend to consider it. At that moment, Prince Julius enters, calm and composed as always, remarking that their sleeping beauty has finally awakened. During breakfast, Julius delivers important news. Scarlet's engagement has been formally annulled with her father's consent. She accepts the news calmly. Julius continues, explaining that Prince Kyle has been disinherited for the chaos he caused and that the exposure of his faction's illegal slave trading will allow the crown to purge its corruption. Scarlet asks if she faces any punishment, but Julius reassures her that she will not. On the contrary, the royal family considers her indispensable. Though she may remain unmarried for now, he tells her that she has gained something invaluable. Curious, Scarlet asks what he means. Julius explains that rumors of her deeds have spread throughout the capital. The woman who single-handedly struck down a group of corrupt nobles has become a legend, the Bloodstained Lady. Leo sighs, pointing out that just when the city had begun to forget the old nickname of the Mad Dog noblewoman, a new legend was born. Julius chuckles at the irony before moving on to serious matters. Many of the nobles she exposed were high-ranking officials, and replacing them will take time. The most critical issue now is Prime Minister Godwin, the mastermind behind the Second Prince's faction. Leo explains that His Majesty and Prince Julius had long suspected a hidden hand manipulating the court and had planned to expose all corrupt nobles at once. Julius adds that the Crown Investigatory Office was established to execute this plan, with Leo appointed as its head. Scarlet notices how busy her brother seems and wonders if his workload stems from this role. Julius retorts that her actions caused most of the current mess, while Leo admits with a wry smile that it's a mix of both. Julius then introduces the person who exposed the Prime Minister's network, Sigurd, an agent who had infiltrated the Second Prince's circle. When Sigurd enters, Scarlet immediately recognizes him. He greets her respectfully and apologizes for his past actions. Scarlet listens calmly and replies that his loyalty to Prince Kyle had been clear from the beginning, and that she holds no personal grudge. Still, she admits his deception was convincing. Sigurd bows his head again, sincerely asking for forgiveness. Amused, Julius tells Scarlet that if she still holds any anger, she may deal with him however she likes. Leo tenses at the suggestion, but Scarlet's eyes glint with mischief. She asks if she may strike him. Sigurd accepts without hesitation. Scarlet swings her fist, stopping just short so that it grazes him lightly. She steps back and declares their past settled, reminding him that he once protected her during their academy days. Sigurd humbly insists he was only fulfilling his duty as a knight, but Scarlet silences him with a firm look. Their exchange leaves Julius and Leo struggling to hide their smiles. Scarlet finishes her tea and excuses herself quietly, already thinking ahead. She realizes her academy friends must have heard about the chaos and will be worried. She plans to visit them soon, but her thoughts turn serious when she remembers the maid who attacked her. When she visits the room where the maid had been detained, it's empty except for a torn dress. Before she can react, a wild beast leaps from the shadows, snarling. Scarlet dodges and knocks it down effortlessly, her voice cold as she orders it to behave. Addressing it as the Beast King Menacanac, she warns it to take human form if it wants to speak. The creature transforms into a boy wielding a dagger and declares he must kill her. Scarlet notices the slave crest etched on his body and quickly deduces his situation. She offers him a deal. If she frees him, he must tell her who sent him. Skeptical but curious, Nanaka agrees. Scarlet subdues him and invokes her divine blessing, using the power of Chrono to reverse the mark on his body. Though weakened by the spell, she explains that the crest is now neutralized. Astonished, Nanaka swears secrecy and loyalty to her, realizing she has risked her own life to free him. When pressed, Nanaka reveals that Prime Minister Godwin ordered him to assassinate her as revenge on behalf of his son, one of the nobles she struck down at the ball. He further explains how Godwin uses slaves and spies to control noble families through bribery and coercion. Hearing this, Scarlet's expression hardens. She decides to confront Godwin directly, despite Nanaka's warning to wait for Julius or Leo. When Nanaka questions why she insists on striking anyone who angers her, Scarlet replies calmly that punishing those who annoy her is only proper. Despite himself, Nanaka laughs and agrees to help her, offering to lead her to a contact who knows the location of the Prime Minister's secret slave auctions. Scarlet agrees, and they set off for the capital, Grand Aild. 3 days later, in the city slums, Scarlet holds up a dull piece of mithril she bought from a street peddler. Nanaka scoffs, calling it worthless. Julius, accompanying them, explains that he joined because he wanted to see the kingdom's corruption firsthand. Scarlet raises an eyebrow, and Julius admits, half-grinning, that her impulsiveness intrigued him. When a gang of robbers appears, Scarlet's expression brightens dangerously. Nanaka urges restraint, but Scarlet's patience runs thin. The robbers taunt her, and in response, she crushes the mithril to dust with her bare hand. The thugs hesitate, then attack. Scarlet moves faster than they can react, striking with precise, overwhelming force until they scatter in terror. One mutters that she must be some kind of monster. Julius watches, clearly amused. After the fight, Julius teases her, saying her unrestrained self is the most entertaining version of her he's ever seen. He decides to handle the next step, interrogating a middleman named Junk, promising to do so without violence. When he returns, Scarlet doubts his claim, but Julius insists he only encouraged cooperation through clever threats. Scarlet smirks, calling him a con artist. He protests, but she reminds him that manipulation without empathy is still manipulation. With the information secured, the three of them prepare for their next move, infiltrating the secret slave auction where the truth about the Prime Minister's schemes awaits. Scarlet and Nanaka visit Zatharan under the pretense of seeking a rare type of servant. Zatharan openly admits that he has a business partnership with the slave trader Junk, who helps him acquire valuable and rare servants, including mythical beings. He then points out that Nanaka is a beast kin and expresses surprise that someone like Scarlet would even own a slave. He looks at Nanaka as if he were some kind of collectible item, which angers Scarlet, though she restrains herself from punching him. Scarlet tells the noble that she wishes to attend the upcoming slave auction. Zatharan explains that before she can be allowed entry, she must first undergo a background review, a process that usually takes at least half a year. Scarlet tries to offer money to speed things up, but instead of accepting, Zatharan tells her he prefers she hand over Nanaka to him, and he'll let her attend the auction under the guise of being his relative. Feigning a polite smile, Scarlet agrees to his terms. After leaving the estate, Scarlet praises Nanaka for correctly predicting Zatharan's response. Nanaka, however, admits he's more surprised that she didn't just punch the man. Slightly offended, Scarlet ruffles his hair and they continue on their way. She checks if he's really okay with pretending to be a slave again. She can remove his brand later, though she can't promise his safety afterward. Nanaka assures her that he's fully committed to the plan since he wants to repay her for freeing him from his first brand and apologize for trying to kill her. Scarlet observes him quietly for a moment and notices that he looks exhausted. After mentioning that beastkin are usually nocturnal, Nanaka begins to sway on his feet before collapsing and transforming into his cat form. Cradling the sleeping beastkin in her arms, Scarlet lightly scolds him for being troublesome and heads back to the inn so they can rest. When they arrive, Julius is already waiting for them. He teases Scarlet for managing to handle the deal without resorting to violence. She ignores him and gently lays Nanaka on the bed. Julius remarks that he wishes he could join them, but as a prince, he can be seen taking an interest in the slave trade. He thanks them both for their hard work, even though Nanaka is fast asleep. Scarlet excuses herself, saying she wants to get some fresh air, but Julius insists on following her, much to her annoyance. Having had enough of his presence, Scarlet finally asks Julius why he keeps following her. Julius casually insists that he just has business in town, so he'll follow her for the meantime. A merchant then calls out to Scarlet, offering her a good deal on some apple pie. Before she can respond, Julius steps in and buys 2 slices, receiving 2 apples for free as part of the deal. As they continue walking, several merchants try to get Scarlet's attention, but it's Julius who ends up entertaining them all. He ends up walking behind her with an armful of items. Scarlet starts to suspect that Julius really is following her and pointedly asks about his supposed business. Julius smiles and admits he made it up, teasing her for being cute enough to believe him. Irritated, Scarlet punches the wall nearby, holding herself back from punching his face instead. As she turns to leave and head back to the inn, Julius holds up the slice of pie in front of her face, pressing it close enough that a bit ends up in her mouth. Scarlet's mood instantly brightens as the sweetness spreads across her tongue. Seeing her expression soften, Julius offers his own slice as well. Scarlet accepts it, declaring that he's once again in her good graces. They take a seat by the park so Scarlet can finish her pie. As she wipes her mouth, she asks Julius why he seems so familiar with the town. Julius admits that he often sneaks out of the academy to explore on his own. Scarlet realizes he's been playing hooky. He then asks what Scarlet thinks of the kingdom's famed marketplace. Scarlet admits she's passed by it many times before to buy Kyle's meals, but never really took the time to look around. Now that she has, she finds the place charming and full of life. She even admits that she enjoyed her time. Julius smiles at her answer, confessing that he's always wanted her to try the apple pie she just ate. Scarlet looks at him curiously. She thinks to herself that she would have been kinder if he just admitted from the start that he wanted to show her around. Julius grows a little nostalgic and admits that, as a child, he was often bored, finding interest in things people would consider strange or even ugly. As the first prince, he was constantly surrounded by sycophantic nobles who were only interested in securing their own wealth. Many tried to push their daughters toward him even when they were too young to even think of marriage. During one of those parties, he recalls seeing Scarlet and Kyle. His brother was openly bullying her, yanking her silver hair. Once Kyle had left, he had approached her, suggesting that if she was afraid of Kyle, she could always tell the king. But Scarlet had only smiled eerily and said she wasn't afraid of Kyle in the slightest. Back in the present, Scarlet listens silently as Julius finishes his story. Without warning, he leans down and plants a kiss on her cheek. He admits that he doesn't feel the usual kind of romantic love most couples do when he knows without question that Scarlet is dear to him, the most important person to him in the world even. Back at the inn, Scarlet lies on her bed, wondering if the kiss Julius gave her was meant to tease her. The next day, Scarlet and Nanaka return to Zathran's estate to fulfill their part of the deal, allowing Scarlet to gain entry into the auction. However, Zathran insists on confirming Nanaka's identity by having him prove that he's truly a beast kin. He explains that it's a precaution since many nobles disguise ordinary slaves as beast kin or other rare servants to drive up their value. With no other choice, Nanaka transforms into his cat form. Zathran's eyes gleam greedily, clearly realizing how much Nanaka will fetch at the upcoming auction. Suddenly, a towering man named Donovan enters the room, asking if Scarlet is the servant they'll be taking to the auction. Zathran corrects him, explaining that Scarlet is actually their client. Scarlet studies Donovan's appearance and movements, quickly realizing that he's not entirely human and likely a magic beast. When Donovan notices Nanaka, the small beast kin hisses defensively. Donovan easily collars him and tries to drag him forward, but when Nanaka refuses to move, Donovan raises his whip to strike. Before he can, Scarlet grabs one end of the whip, preventing him from harming Nanaka further. With an icy calm, Scarlet remarks that Zathran's servant could use better discipline and offers to teach him a lesson. The comment irritates Donovan, who sees it as an insult. Zathran tries to defuse the situation, warning Scarlet not to provoke him since Donovan was once an A-class adventurer, strong enough that even a knight captain would struggle against him. Scarlet, however, remains completely unfazed. Donovan, now beyond reason, lashes out with his whip, but the other end is still in Scarlet's grip. He tries to pull it back, only to find that it won't budge. Zathran thinks Donovan is joking, but Donovan loudly tells him that Scarlet is somehow restraining him. Maintaining her composure, Scarlet coolly asks if Donovan will also be part of the auction. Zathran quickly replies that Donovan is his personal slave and bodyguard. A sharp smile forms on Scarlet's lips as she claims she can discipline him since he doesn't have to be pristine for the auction. In an instant, she yanks the whip toward her, pulling the massive man off his feet. One powerful punch later, and he's hurled clean out the window by the sheer force of the blow. Scarlet walks over to Nanaka and notices that his neck has been injured from the rough handling he endured earlier. Gently, she casts a healing spell, and the wounds disappear almost instantly. She pulls Nanaka into a tight hug and whispers that she'll come back for him once the mission is over. Scarlet insists on paying for the damages, but Zathran quickly refuses, clearly afraid of becoming her next victim. Instead, he nervously thanks her for disciplining his servant, promising Nanaka won't be harmed, and hastily begins discussing the details of where they should meet for the auction. Later, as Scarlet returns to the inn, she notices a familiar carriage waiting out front. Her brother Leo steps out, ready to scold her for suddenly disappearing from the estate. When Scarlet glances at the carriage again, she spots Julius inside and immediately realizes that he must have been the one who informed Leo of her whereabouts. Back at the estate, Leo reprimands both Scarlet and Julius for putting themselves in danger. Julius, however, reports that they successfully discovered the location of the upcoming auction. Leo continues to scold them, stating that Julius is a prince and needs to be more careful, and that he worries about Scarlet since she is his precious sister. In addition, he also worries about all the nasty nicknames she's been given due to her beating up nobles with her fists. To refocus Leo on the situation, Scarlet asks about his own research. Leo reveals that a man named Goodwin is the one organizing the auction. Scarlet adds that the event will take place in 2 nights, which causes Leo to panic since they'll need to prepare quickly if they hope to infiltrate it. As Leo mutters about the tasks ahead, Julius notices Scarlet staring at him. Grinning, he teases that he doesn't have any apple pie for her today, but can always send a servant to get her some if she desires the sweet pastry. Scarlet looks at him, annoyed since he is suggesting she is a glutton. They begin discussing her infiltration plan, and Leo suggests that Scarlet should return to their estate. However, Scarlet refuses to return to their main manor. She explains that ever since breaking her engagement with Kyle, she's met many fascinating individuals and finally feels free to act as herself without restraint. Through her newfound freedom, she's discovered that the kingdom hides deep inequality, such as slavery, poverty, and nobles, so greedy they disregard both law and conscience. Among them, she's also met a golden-haired prince whose life goal seems to be proving her wrong. Julius realizes that he was just mentioned and wonders why he is last. She declares that it's unfair how the wicked prosper in such a system, citing Goodwin as a perfect example of selfish nobility whose reign needs to be stopped. Standing from her seat, Scarlet firmly tells Julius and Leo that she's happiest when she's allowed to punch wicked nobles. Julius bursts out laughing, while Leo can only feel stress and disappointment at his sister's conclusion. Scarlet tries to reason with Leo, pointing out that only a noble woman is excused for striking another noble. Julius sees her point, but Leo is horrified that her solution once again involves violence and worries it could lead to their house's downfall. Trying to steer the discussion back to the matter at hand, Leo warns them that Goodwin may be connected to the Vanquish Empire. Scarlet recalls that Vanquish has had frequent border skirmishes with Palisson for the past 300 years, and was an interesting opponent since they have tamed dragons they can ride. However, relations with the opposite empire have been relatively peaceful since the last treaty. Leo informs them that there's intelligence suggesting Goodwin has been in contact with the Red Sky Dragoons, the Vanquish Empire's aerial militant unit. Meanwhile, Goodwin himself meets with members of the Red Sky Dragoons, negotiating a deal to have Scarlet eliminated. After the Dragoons depart on their dragons, Terraneza proposes using a gun to deal with Scarlet instead. Curious about the weapon, Goodwin insists his magical pendant is powerful enough only to be stunned when Terraneza demonstrates the gun's ease of use and devastating power. The evening of the auction finally arrives. Scarlet steps from the carriage, dressed to the nines, escorted by Zatharin. He hands her an ornate mask that she slips on and tells him she hopes they will make good purchases, though her real intent is to shut the auction down. Thanks to Julius's intervention, Scarlet was granted permission to attend. He convinced Leo that letting her in could improve their odds. Without her, they could only afford 10 undercover agents with no weapons, and they might not be able to take down Goodwin since they are not as strong as Scarlet. He also reasoned that if Scarlet succeeds, the scandal and gossip that haunt her name could be replaced, and she will be known as the kingdom's iron-fisted savior. Outside the venue, Leo is informed that his troops are ready but will only mobilize on Julius' signal. He watches the building anxiously, having made Scarlet promise not to strike anyone unnecessarily. The promise earns a smile from her, but Leo still feels ill with worry since he is fully aware of his sister's love for fighting. Inside, Scarlet moves among the glittering crowd and listens to nobles talk about their auctions. Each guest seeks a specific kind of servant to satisfy private whims. The lights suddenly cut, throwing the room into a brief, confused hush. She brushes shoulders with a man whose voice sounds oddly familiar, but he slips away before she can place him. A showman in magician's outfit appears on the stage and announces the start of the auction. The orchestra swells as the first slave appears on stage, a one-winged avian girl presented under bright lights. Bidders immediately volley offers of gold, with the price climbing fast. As the frenzy escalates, Julius appears at Scarlet's side. He tells her he's here to check on her, as the palace knights are in position and will storm the venue at his signal. Scarlet proposes an alternate tactic, asking if he'll permit her to be the one to beat down Goodwin when they locate him inside. Julius agrees to hold off on the raid a little longer, admitting that he thoroughly enjoys watching Scarlet beat people up, especially when they deserve it. However, before fully agreeing to her request, he demands something in return. Scarlet vows her undying loyalty to the kingdom if she's allowed to do as she pleases. Julius, however, decides it would be better if she swore loyalty to him instead of the crown. Even if he's destined to become king soon, he wants her now. Seeing no other choice, Scarlet reluctantly agrees to his terms, thinking that Julius is truly one scheming prince. Returning to the mission, Scarlet informs Julius that Goodwin is on the second floor, overlooking the auction. Julius says it's the perfect time for Scarlet to show everyone what she's capable of, and they begin to make their move. She warns him to stay in the audience since there's a chance she might go off script and end up hitting him. Meanwhile, in the back area where the slaves wait to be auctioned, chaos brews. A young elf struggles to stay beside her mother even as the guards drag the older woman toward the stage. Looking around, the child sees that all the other slaves appear broken, some wishing for rescue. Others resign to their fate. She falls to her knees and begins to cry, but Nanaka gently comforts the girl and promises that she and her mother will be safe. Back with Scarlet, she clears a path toward Goodwin by knocking out nearby soldiers with magic. Julius compliments her control, but Scarlet replies with a snarky remark reminding him that he used to beat her in their magic exams back at the academy. As they near the room where Goodwin is hiding, a group of brutish men blocks their way, glaring menacingly at them. Scarlet calmly removes her elegant gloves and replaces them with her battle ones. On the main stage, the MC announces an intermission as the orchestra begins to play the Dance of the Roses. To the rhythm of the music, Scarlet fights. Her movements are swift and precise, each blow landing in perfect time with the melody. The attendees are unaware of the chaos happening in a different part of the estate. It looks as if Scarlet is dancing gracefully and powerfully as she defeats every opponent in her path. One man is thrown through a door, crashing it open and shocking the people inside. Calmly, Scarlet walks in and remarks that she's finally happy to see her punching bag in person. The people in the room stare in disbelief while Hein's face twists in fury at the sight of Scarlet once again. Not wanting to be humiliated by her a second time, Hein immediately summons his thunder magic, but Julius calmly raises his hand and casts a dispel order using his ring. Govin's eyes widen in recognition. He knows that ring belongs to the royal family. The realization dawns on him that the masked man must be Julius himself. The nobles in the room, however, try to convince themselves otherwise. They whisper that this couldn't possibly be the prince, just an imposter who somehow got his hands on the royal seal. In a panic, Goodwin calls for Donovan, who now looks even larger and more feral than before. Donovan is ordered to get rid of Scarlet and Julius, but before he can even strike, Sigurd appears, swiftly taking him down before standing in front of Julius. He scolds the prince for wandering off alone, and Scarlet recognizes him as the man she bumped into earlier. Goodwin orders his men to attack. Sigurd prepares to strike back, but Scarlet stops him by pulling him back. She whispers that the men are her punching bags, and she'll be the one to handle them. However, she allows Sigurd to take on the lycanthrope, insisting that the corrupt nobles are hers to deal with. Excited, Sigurd agrees, and the two dive into battle. Scarlet looks absolutely blissful as she fights, spinning one of the men by the leg and knocking down several others in her dance. Moments later, Leo arrives at the venue, worried because the signal for the raid never came. His concern quickly turns to heartbreak at the sight of his little sister standing amid a bloody heap of nobles. Scarlet tries to reassure him, insisting she actually went easy on them. But Leo argues that he knows she went all out. The sound of people fleeing catches his attention, and he sees that a lot of the nobles in the audience are making their escape. Scarlet realizes she hasn't punched Goodman yet. Julius orders Leo to go after him, much to her dismay. He promises she'll get her chance soon. Leo frowns at Julius' words until the prince explains that he must keep his promise to Scarlet since they exchanged vows earlier. Not understanding the implications, Scarlet confirms that they had indeed exchanged vows and she promised her life to Julius. Misunderstanding, Leo tears up, thinking they meant wedding vows. His eyes well up in happy tears since he had long given up on Scarlet finding happiness and love. Scarlet is left confused but pleased that her brother finally seems happy for her. Julius, meanwhile, can't help but be amused by how clueless the siblings are. Julius then pulls out a strange bottle and releases the spell sealed inside. Leo quickly snaps out of his momentary happiness and refocuses on the mission. Activating his own magic, he spots Goodwin and Hein attempting to escape to the rooftop through the central stairway. However, his expression shifts to alarm as he informs the others that there's a dragon waiting outside. The three rush toward the rooftop. It's now clear that Goodwin has been dealing with the Red Sky Dragoons. If he manages to reach the neighboring kingdom, he'll be out of their grasp. As they open the door leading to the stairway, Leo doubts they can make it in time since they're still in the basement. Scarlet suddenly removes her heels, confusing him. She simply tells Leo to take care of Nanaka and the other slaves as she positions to climb the stairs. Before anyone can protest, Scarlet activates an acceleration spell and dashes up the stairway, moving so fast she disappears in an instant. She finally reaches the rooftop, though the spell's toll hits her body hard. Still, she can clearly see her targets ahead of her. Hein and Goodwin are running toward the dragon, hoping to make it out of the country. They shout at the rider, Alflame, for not meeting them on the ground, but Alflame mutters under his breath and commands his dragon, Rex, to teach them a lesson. Before Rex can swing his massive tail, Scarlet blocks it using only her fist. As the dust settles, Goodwin realizes that Scarlet landed directly on top of Hein, knocking him out cold. Ignoring Hein, Scarlet turns to Goodwin and greets him politely. Elflame descends from Rex, intrigued and excited to finally meet her. Without hesitation, he dramatically proposes to Scarlet. She coldly refuses and slaps him across the face, sending him crashing into the rails. Rex roars in anger, but Scarlet grabs the dragon's jaw with one hand and slams it to the ground with a heavy thud. Recovering, Elflame stumbles toward her again, claiming that he's fallen in love with her strength. Scarlet calls him delusional and punches him square in the gut. Still not giving up, Elflame tries again, this time complimenting her beauty. Scarlet responds with a powerful kick, sending him flying. Despite trembling in pain, Elflame stands once more. Scarlet looks at him and states that she already knows his true identity as the Prince of the Vanquished Empire. Elflame smirks and admits it openly, revealing that he came here to kill Goodwin. Godwin, realizing the betrayal, screams in rage. He had foolishly believed he would be welcomed into Vanquish as a minister. Elflame tells Godwin that such a thing will never happen, declaring that he would never entrust his kingdom to a man who so easily betrayed his own. He points his spear at Godwin, ready to end his life, but when he throws the spear at Godwin, it is stopped by Scarlet's leg. Elflame teases her, saying it's unladylike to show her legs, yet he seizes the chance to get closer to her, admitting that he finds her quite charming. Scarlet glares at him and snaps that it's rude to touch a lady without permission, but her witty remarks seem to encourage him further. Scarlet soon notices Elflame's remarkable endurance. He proudly explains that he was blessed by the god of steel, allowing him to withstand almost any physical attack. He even admits that he knows Scarlet herself is blessed, but confidently claims that no matter her gift, she cannot defeat him with brute force. Scarlet smirks knowingly and tells him she actually knows one way to defeat him. She wraps her arms around his neck. Elflame thinks she's about to kiss him, but instead she yanks him down and drives her knee into his face. She repeats the motion several times, striking him faster than he can react. Godwin stands frozen in disbelief, watching Scarlet pummel the Prince of Vanquish. Eventually, Scarlet stops. Elflame wobbles on his feet, dazed and concussed, yet still tries to convince her to come with him to his kingdom before he finally falls. Fed up with his persistence, Scarlet grabs him by the collar, activates her ability, and launches him skyward, sending him flying back toward his homeland. Turning back to Godwin, she finds him trembling and desperate. He begs for forgiveness and blames everything on Hein. In his panic, he confesses that he was the one behind her breakup with Kyle, claiming he used Terraneza to make it happen. Scarlet's expression hardens at the mention of that name, as she remembers Terraneza as the woman who humiliated her at the royal ball. Trying not to anger Scarlet further, Godwin hurriedly promises to tell her more about Terraneza, hinting that she isn't who she seems. He reveals that Terraneza is actually from another world, reincarnated into this one through the power of a goddess.